Hello gamers, this is Sai and welcome back to Which Way Games. Now what would you say when faced with an alien horde?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
And with that being said, let's get on with the video.
When it comes to the Nintendo 64, games look back on this console with fondness. With its revolutionary graphics, superior power compared to older consoles at the time, and a bizarre yet functional controller.
The Nintendo 64 took the world by storm, and some gamers still class it as one of the greatest consoles of all time.
Having a huge library of games to choose from, gamers certainly are spoiled for choice, especially with classics such as Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, F-Zero X, and probably one of the greatest games for the Nintendo 64.
The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, a masterpiece of gaming for the Nintendo 64, as well as its sequel Majora's Mask. But the Nintendo 64 also had other fantastic games to play.
Some of these games went on to spawn entire franchises, while others simply fade into obscurity, but many years later would eventually have a cult following, such as Armorines and Body Harvest, all of which I'll come back to in future videos.
All of these games have something in common, and that's blowing up alien insects into tiny little pieces. Of course, this reminds me of one other game from the masterminds of Rare, and this would be Jet Force Gemini. But before I carry on, let's go back to where it all started.
Now, game developer Rare are well known for other classic Nintendo games, such as Diddy Kong Racing, Blast Corps, and the infamous GoldenEye. Each game seemed to have the Midas touch, and to continue on this winning streak, Rare came up with a novel idea of combining action with sci-fi, while keeping the unique look that Rare is known for. This initial idea also came about when looking back at games of the past, in particular Metroid, and as all gamers know, the Nintendo 64 didn't have a game starring the galaxy's best bounty hunter.
Now, Jet Force Gemini could have easily been the Nintendo 64's version of Metroid. Can you just imagine playing as Samus Aran on the 64-bit console from Nintendo? Obviously, Samus made a return to the world of gaming for the GameCube with Metroid Prime. Definitely one I'll come back to in future videos.
Rare had two development teams working on numerous titles, and the team behind Blast Corps got to work on creating Jet Force Gemini, with inspiration from the world of sci-fi, classic 80s gaming, and even the Italian plumber's own free-roaming adventure for the Nintendo 64. With the idea of creating lush worlds within the capabilities of the 64-bit system, this would always prove to be a bit of a challenge for game developers, but luckily they had an ace up their sleeve.
This would be the expansion pack for the Nintendo 64, and Jet Force Gemini was destined to only work with this.
Rare had always put their own spin on games, and so the plan of having 3 playable characters seemed the best way to go, naming them after stars and constellations found within the universe. However, not everything was easy sailing, as Rare were having a few development issues when it came to the controls.
They wanted gamers to be able to see the character they're playing as, but have it play like a first-person shooter, a bit like Quake. And there was an idea to have the game go into automatic first-person mode when gamers would enter a shootout with enemies.
Thankfully, this idea was changed in favour of manual targeting, making use of the Z targeting system that was made famous by Ocarina of Time. And with all the stars and planets aligned, it was late October of 1999 that gamers were blessed with the release of Jet Force Gemini.
And like always, let's go back to the past to see how Jet Force Gemini was advertised.
Blast off for galactic adventure with Jet Force Gemini for your Nintendo 64. Blaze into action with your team of adventurers bent on breaking the alien Mizar's interstellar stranglehold. An awesome 120 stages awaits you, each bristling with its own brand of terror, robotic power-ups, and gruesome gross-outs. 1 to 4 players can join the battle or race through labyrinth alien underworlds. Each adventurer is equipped with a unique special talent, which you will master along your journey. From the look of these bosses, you're going to need it. Jet Force Gemini for your N64, a force to be reckoned with.
The story of Jet Force Gemini begins deep in space, where hours before, the galactic law enforcement fleet was attacked by the forces of the evil Mizar. The station was bombarded by lasers, rockets, and a small army of mindless drones out for blood. Three heroes learn that Mizar has been capturing and enslaving the inhabitants known as tribals. With more mindless drones tearing the spaceship apart, Juno, Vela, and Lupus are forced to head for the escape pods in order to survive. Now separated, the trio must do what they can to stop Mizar, help the tribals, as well as reuniting with each other before the final confrontation.
Gameplay has gamers controlling a trio of heroes in this fantastic 3D shoot 'em up for the Nintendo 64.
Starting out, gamers are shown the events leading up to the events of the game, and from there, the adventure truly begins. With gamers finding themselves on a strange planet that really gives off vibes of a living, breathing alien world.
Although the main focus of gameplay is blasting away enemies with a multitude of weapons.
Gamers will explore parts of the galaxy where 15 worlds act as the game stages, their own look, as well as unlockable areas that can be accessed later on. Not only will gamers be able to explore strange new worlds, they'll also rescue the lovable tribals, and of course, collect spaceship parts that will eventually come into play later in the game.
A bit like Pikmin but more violent, as well as trigger happy.
Of course, the 3 playable characters available can be used to open up other areas throughout the game, but they each have their own quirks and abilities.
For example, Juno could walk over lava, Vela could hold her breath underneath water, and of course, Lupus the dog, he could hover for a short time. I mean, who wouldn't want a dog that could fly?
Not only does Jet Force Gemini have a great single player campaign and cooperative gameplay, which was unusual for the Nintendo 64 at the time, but it also comes with a highly entertaining multiplayer segment. Gamers can participate in death matches, blowing each other up with rockets and lasers, as well as an on-rail shooting segment where gamers aim for the high score.
Yes! I am invincible!
Jet Force Gemini also came with an addictive and unlockable racing mode that was very reminiscent of some of the classic racing games of the 80s.
When released, Jet Force Gemini was praised by critics and gamers, with some saying that it paid its respects to some of the classic action games of the 80s.
Many gamers were over the moon with Jet Force Gemini and the hours of fun it provided, with some praising the polished graphics and the superb controls. Although Jet Force Gemini is not without its flaws, it has a troublesome camera and some missions that become tedious over time. However, for some gamers, this didn't affect the overall experience for this classic 3D shooting game for the Nintendo 64.
Now, Jet Force Gemini is also available on the Rare Replay, alongside the other games from Rare.
Overall, Jet Force Gemini is a fun and addictive game that offers plenty of challenge for even the most hardcore gamer. With that unique experience that Rare could only provide, gamers will find themselves enjoying every moment of dealing with puzzles, as well as blasting away alien insects out for blood. Combining this with some great graphics, fluid controls, and easy to pick up gameplay, it's easy to see why after many years since release, Jet Force Gemini is still regarded in the top 10 games from Rare. Maybe in time, Jet Force Gemini will get a sequel where the trio could team up with all new members of the Galactic Law Enforcement Fleet, and possibly even have a run-in with a certain Orange Fox and his team, or the Galactic Bounty Hunter Samus Aran.
Anyway, come back next time where I take a look at how important Sonic was to Sega, as well as to the world of gaming. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next game.
We'll be right back.